found in the tomb, and one of them did have lioness signs. If you look at the inscription on that, you'll find that the king is under the protection of the sacred cow, pt4, which again doesn't make sense. So clearly what happened was that when these beds were being made at the factory, the craftsman put the inscription on this mattress, which should have gone on the lioness bed, and on the lioness bed, the inscription which should have gone on this one.
It's very nice to see that they were human and could fail occasionally.
Oh yes, that happened not infrequently. Anyhow, now that we know who the cow was, the purpose of the bed becomes clear, because pt4 was the form of Hathor, on which the king, the sun god, when he ceased being king on earth, mounted to heaven, rather like the chariot of fire. And so Tutankhamun, no doubt, hoped that he would rise to heaven lying on this bed.
One of the aspects of this exhibition that I find most intriguing, Dr. Edwards, is that every single object in the tomb had a purpose, a significance, like this splendid alabaster casket, for instance.
Yes, indeed. This illustrates it very well. Howard Carter found this casket with its contents undisturbed. They were, first of all, a layer of linen on the bottom, and then some hair, and most interesting, I think, of all, 2 balls of human hair wrapped in linen. Now, one way by which the Egyptians indicated the signing of a contract was by the exchange of balls of hair by the contracting parties. Now, in this casket, if you look at the head end under the knob, you will see there are 3 cartouches. 2 of them have the names of the king, and 1 has the name of the queen. There were thus 2 people, and it makes one ask whether the fact that you have 2 balls of hair and 2 names, whether 1 ball did not belong to each person named, the king and the queen. If so, what was the contract that was signed? At first I thought it was the marriage contract, and then I realized that the names in the cartouches were not those that they used at the time of their marriage. However, they are the names that they used at the time of the coronation, and I think it's possible, I won't say more than that, that this was part of the coronation ceremony, a contract signed then.
A lock of human hair to seal a coronation. Such then was the King Tutankhamun, this obscure boy king at the tail end of a dying dynasty, who acted out his brief charade of immortality before death caught him in his teens. History has no cause to remember him except as a symbol of the restoration of an old order. It was only the accident of his survival that's made him so intensely memorable. It was archaeology as much as religion that's given him a second lease of life. So let's now tread the path that 2 million visitors or more will be treading before this summer's out. A walk back through eternity. Because Tutankhamun was the only pharaoh of ancient Egypt for whom the elaborate rituals designed to transcend death and oblivion really worked. His grave survived undisturbed for more than 30 centuries. And now, thanks to the Department of Antiquities of the Arab Republic of Egypt, who have loaned these 50 priceless treasures of Tutankhamun for this display, we can see for ourselves the astonishing grandeur of the Egyptian concept of royal immortality. Everything here is 3,300 years old. Everything is genuine, just as it came from the tomb. And Tutankhamun here, sentinel to the last, symbolizes it. And first glimpse, the handsome black and gilded holy cow that carried him to heaven. the painted model boat carved from a single block of wood to symbolize that last journey on the Nile. And here's the floral unguent vase of alabaster, incorporating the symbolic statement, 100,000 times eternity, container for the unguents which gave a man's earthly remains at least a kind of immortality. And another delightful unguent vase carved in the form of a lion, its chest inscribed, albeit incorrectly I'm told, with the names and royal titles of Tutankhamun and his determined widow. The painted alabaster casket we've been discussing with Dr. Edwards, the coronation contract of the man that the inscriptions name as the good God, Lord of the two lands, and the woman they call the great royal wife. And here, now look, here is the dream of immortality made explicit. This is a carved wooden statuette of the god Ptah, the principal god of the ancient capital city of Memphis. And down there on the pedestal in yellow paint, you have the precise promise, the good god Tutankhamun, beloved of Ptah, Lord of truth, given life forever. He was given life forever. And we ought to stop here too. This is a marvelous little thing, this translucent alabaster chalice, carved in the shape of a single bloom of the white lotus. And the inscription round the rim of the bowl, may thy Ka live, and mayest thou then spend millions of years, thou lover of Thebes, sitting with thy face to the north wind, thine two eyes beholding happiness. Millions of years. Well, he said 3,300 already, and that's something to be going on with. And there's the miniature canopic coffin in which his lungs lay breathless, and the canopic stopper of alabaster of his smenkare. Now, we've already contemplated this effigy of death, but what I didn't mention before is that this particular piece was the funeral gift of the superintendent of building works in the necropolis, a gentleman called Maya. And we probably have him to thank for the fact that the tomb robbers of antiquity were foiled soon enough to leave this great treasure trove intact for posterity. And then standing just behind him, we have a Shabti figure of the king. It's a sort of a deputy or substitute to carry out some of the more arduous duties expected of one in the next world, like tilling the fields or digging the garden. The bed of the divine cow, that one that got the inscriptions mixed up, must have taken the edge off its magical properties a bit. Incidentally, there were no fewer than 8 beds in all in Tutankhamun's tomb, including a sort of folding camp bed. This is what I think of as the Bond Street room, the fine furniture department. This handsome piece has got a couple of carrying poles attached to them, a relic from the days when you could still get porters, but it is in fact a unique survival of a portable chest. And the inscriptions, they, as usual, promise that Tutankhamun will live as long as the sun and be born daily like the sun. We have our elegant Victorian cabinet with its bombastic boastings about Tutankhamun, and this much more intimate child's chair with its worn and patched footstool. Then this funny bow-shaped box. I wonder what it held. Probably hats. And the child's pallet and the gaming table, and a very uncomfortable-looking ornate royal chair. But then one remembers from the scene on the ornamented chest here that when Tutankhamun went out having shooting practice at the ducks and the fish in the lake, he used a cushion on his stool. The golden shrine with its domestic scenes of the king and his queen. Originally, inside that shrine, there was a solid gold statuette of the king. That was one that the robbers of antiquity did get away with. But they didn't get away with these 3 statuettes of the king in the prime of his youth. The king erect and regal. The king as the harpooner on his papyrus boat, going for the hippopotamus. And the strange statuette of the king, the statue standing on the leopard's back.